everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two Asian Blokes podcast, a podcast where we talk about Asian pop culture, films, TV shows, comic books, anime, music, food, video games, whatever we're feeling at the time, really. My name is Dan with a H. With me, as always, is my co-host Harvey. Hi, Harvey.
Hello, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Yeah, recovered from your big trip to Sydney?
Yeah,
You were doing pretty well until the last night.
yeah, the very last night. It just came out of nowhere. Yeah, we're covering the Sydney Film Festival in this episode where, yes, I did go to Sydney and we were going to do this in person while I was staying with you. But on our allotted recording time, I got full-blown flu, cold, not COVID, because I did the test when I got back.
Good to know.
And it was negative. So, could be bird flu, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did we eat a particular amount of chickens when I was there, or eggs? I've only just been seeing the news that they're putting, like, limits on buying eggs or shit.
Yeah, we probably ate some chicken.
Yeah.
I think we had some chicken skewers at the...
Vivid
food trucks.
At Vivid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we went to Vivid.
Yeah.
That very price-friendly food truck zone.
It's good though. Good food this year, actually.
Yeah, it's good food.
Yeah.
Just a bit out of my price range of normal eateries.
You never got that churro, the creme brulee churro cone.
Yeah, fucking hell. This fucking creme brulee churro, for all of you that don't know, and I didn't know, is that there's a fucking churro truck there which seems to sell churros of the gods or something because it was the most packed line every day, even on times when it wasn't supposed to be busy. I mean, like, do most people know, I guess, like, listeners outside of Australia or outside of Sydney?
Oh, no, yeah, nobody knows what Vivid is outside of Australia. Yeah.
Outside of Sydney.
But anyway, there are food trucks there. One of the food trucks sells these churros, but they twirl the churro into the shape of a cone, and then they fill it with creme brulee and, like, flamethrower at the top of it. They're really good. I had one right at the start of Vivid, but never was able to get another one because
that was it.
Like after that initial couple of days where things were just warming up, the lines were just like super long, no matter what time you go there. Yeah.
I think the longest one was we were there on like the Sunday, the day before Monarch's birthday, and it was basically like Helm's Deep. Like there were people clearly in that part of the line that were not going to get the churros that night. But they kind of just stood there stubbornly. But otherwise, it was fun, you know. It's always cool to see like all the light show displays and stuff. But yeah, just didn't get those churros. And I think waiting for those churros in the Helm's Deep line was probably where I caught a bit of the sickness, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Being out in the cold.
Yeah.
Waiting for these.
And then not getting a churro. Yeah.
Fucking hell, still dying. But yeah, so I'm on my meds. I've got a heat patch on my neck.
Oh, good. But this episode isn't about Vivid. Where we are, like you mentioned, going to talk about the Sydney Film Festival. So not really particularly about Asian pop culture either. Although we are talking about two Japanese movies.
Yeah, as you said, we do try to cover Asian movies, but also sometimes it's like, oh yeah, these films are probably the more interesting ones that I wanted to see.
And
out of
sometimes we do Australian stuff, and the Sydney Film Festival is in Australia, so we're going to talk about films that we saw during the Sydney Film Festival.
It's just we just do whatever we want.
Yeah, 4 films altogether. So we're going to be talking about Kinds of Kindness, Box Diaries, A Different Man, and The Contestant. Yeah, we'll probably talk about it in that order just to try to mix up fiction and non-fiction. You know?
Oh, yeah. So this should be spoiler-free, I assume?
Yeah, we'll do spoiler-free because probably by the time we release this episode, maybe some of these movies may not have come out into mainstream theaters. So, we'll keep it spoiler-free just in case.
Yeah, but let's not waste any more time, man. Let's just jump straight into it.
All right, Kinds of Kindness, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, most famously recently for his work on Poor Things, a film that generally everybody loved.
I really enjoyed
I like
Poor
to
Things,
call it the hipsters Barbie.
Yeah, maybe the hipsters.
Pretty similar themes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot more artsy
true,
though.
Yeah.
But Kinds of Kindness, pretty different film to that. Although carries his signature style, I would say.
Yeah, it's more aligned with some of his earlier movies, like The Lobster, Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Yep.
I think he had a short film before that, but I've forgotten. No, it wasn't. It was Dogtooth. I think that was a Greek movie because he is a Greek director.
Greek descent, yeah.
Yeah. So there is one Asian person in this movie.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Hong Chao's in this.
Hong Chao's in this.
Yeah.
She plays 3 characters because the movie's based upon like 3 stories, 3 anthologies, but she's not the main character in any of them. The leads are all played by Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone. And then all the supporting actors, the ones that I can remember, Hong Chao and Willem Dafoe. And there's a few other famous actors in there that I didn't recognize.
Margaret Qualley is in there.
Yeah. That's it. That's her name. I forgot.
Yep. And some others. The cast is pretty small in
pretty
general
stacked.
because
pretty
pretty
stacked
small
though,
but pretty stacked. You're right. But you're right. There are 3 stories, 3 not connected stories, not narratively connected anyway.
Yeah, loosely thematically connected.
So interesting format for a feature film. But yeah, all of the characters in each story, they're all played by the same actors. So so the first story is basically about a man who is played by Jesse Plemons who tries to take control of his own life because he's kind of like his life up to that point has been kind of steered by Willem Dafoe's character. The second story is about a policeman whose wife is rescued from sea, but she seems like a different person when she comes back. And the third movie is about a woman who is searching for someone with a special ability because she's part of some kind of cult that is looking for their messiah.
I guess we shouldn't go too deep into them because we've already got a lot to talk about this episode. But I mean, the film overall is pretty much classic Lanthimos and probably my favorite Lanthimos. Whereas I did enjoy, The Favorite and Poor Things. I don't often revisit those movies. I often revisit movies like The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer.
The darker offerings.
Yeah, they're a bit very darker, very dry, dark humor, very, very good humor.
A lot weirder.
Yeah, it's
I would say
very inaccessible if you are not used to this kind of film.
Yeah, kind of unhinged.
Its format is weird, its length is long, and its humor is dark. And I'm pretty sure, there were definitely people that walked out after the second story. Because when I was leaving, I just heard some woman just be like, I just couldn't handle it after the second one, It's too much.
It's definitely not for everyone. Like you said, pretty inaccessible. But I really enjoyed this film. Yeah, all of the stories, they're really fun in a dark, unhinged kind of way. They're really funny, I found. I think this is probably the most I've ever laughed in a Yorgos film. Laughed out loud, I would say. Yeah, just, and it's it's really hard to do this kind of humor, I think. It's very clever. There's a bit in the first story where it's a really simple gag, but it's super effective, where Willem Dafoe's character and Jesse Plemons' character are having this really intense conversation because Jesse Plemons' character is trying to separate himself from Willem Dafoe. And Willem Dafoe is sitting on a couch while Jesse Plemons is standing up. And they're having this really intense conversation, and then Willem Dafoe kind of stands up and steps away from the couch, and you see that he's wearing shorts, and the whole theater just cracked up. It's just something it's really funny about Willem Dafoe wearing shorts.
Just wearing shorts it's really hard to explain this kind of humor. It's just dry because there's not necessarily a joke. But I guess if you analyze it, there's probably some sort of layers to it. But at the end of the day, it just looks funny. That's why we're all laughing.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of weird scoring to the movie. Lots of haunting Gregorian chants, but it's very minimal and it's quite eerie.
Yeah.
And it's weird because this is, you would call this a pretty highbrow movie. But if you dissect some of its humor, it is kind of silly.
Yeah.
Willem
Dafoe wearing shorts is objectively silly, but it's universal as well. That's why the whole theater cracked up. And just the framing of the scene, it's definitely very intentional. And a lot of the edits as well.
Yeah.
It's just really good visual gags.
I can't talk about it too much, but there's just a scene involving dogs which is really funny. Then it gets really dark and then really funny again.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, it's really silly. Like, what I really like about Lanthimos' movies is the way characters talk to each other. The dialogue is very much unnatural, and there's a weird timing to it. It's almost like it's too precise, as if the characters are sort of rehearsing what they're going to say to each other. Like they're always on cue. They're always like, there's not that much of a pause.
Yeah.
But it kind of adds to this weird universe that he's created. It's very like dreamlike. It's ethereal feeling. And that's what I really liked about this movie. Yeah. Everyone in all the stories is pretty much unlikable, which is very hard to do. It's a Lanthimos like, it's his signature, you know. All the characters are kind of out to get each other. There's nothing. There's not that much for you to latch on to.
They're unlikable, but you do feel for them.
Yeah,
in
you feel for
certain
them.
situations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And a lot of that comes through in the performances as well. Like, because I don't know anything about acting, but it's probably really hard to portray these kinds of characters that are just kind of like so separated from reality, but you're still trying to convey real emotions. It's weird. Like these characters are weird.
I like the balanced squeamishness to it, balanced awkwardness, because this is not a particularly violent film or even sexual film, not as much as Poor Things, but there's just these instances where there is like violence and there's like some pretty like hardcore sex scenes, I would say, where it's more implied, but the way that it's used is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But it's also very unsettling, especially in the second story.
The violence is never for the sake of violence. It's always serving the story, as are the sex scenes. Well, the sex scenes is really just a gag, really.
It's a gag. It's a gag,
and a pretty good one as well.
There's only really one.
Yeah.
There's a couple. It's not Poor Things, like, you know.
Right.
Emma Stone really likes working with Lanthimos, like really likes working with Lanthimos, where I wonder, you know, she's like, oh yeah, I'll just do this, I'll do whatever, but you know, she's getting Oscars from it, so yeah, why not?
Yeah, I think the cast is cast really well in general. Like you've got all these weird characters and they're played by a bunch of weirdos, I guess. Like Willem Dafoe has form in being a weirdo. From what I've seen of Hong Chow, she's got this kind of stoicism that really sells like kind of characters that talk this way, I guess.
Yeah.
Jesse Plemons as well. He's got like this kind of deadpan demeanor that he pulls off. And Emma Stone she's really good at acting weird as well.
Jesse Plemons is great, man. I love that guy.
That guy in Jungle Cruise.
I first saw him in... he was in Jungle Cruise. Why do you always remember these actors in like the most
It's what I watched,
generic bit?
Leave me alone.
I was going to say, like, I first saw him in I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which I really liked. And I also has Jesse Buckley, who I really like as well. But yeah, I guess most people would know him as Jungle Cruise.
Whoever he played in Jungle Cruise
guy. To be fair, Jungle Cruise is not a bad movie. It's just fun.
It's a pretty forgettable movie.
It's very forgettable, but
it's not the worst.
It's a movie with The Rock in it. You know, you know what you're gonna get. Yeah. It's a commercial product. Surprisingly, no Terramana ad reads in that movie. You know, so
true.
Maybe it hadn't come out then. Yeah. There's no Terramana in this movie because there's no The Rock. Yeah.
No. I would love to see The Rock in a Yorgos film, though. I think you know, it would be weird enough of a situation that would work.
Yeah. Which out of the three stories, without giving too much away, would you say was your favorite one, though?
It's pretty hard. I think I enjoyed the first one the most, maybe. Yeah, I really like the setup of the first one. And the relationship between, you know, just Willem Dafoe and Jesse Plemons' characters is very interesting. And yeah, I liked all of them. I think maybe I was losing steam by the third one. But the third one was, you know, probably the most interesting. But I think just my energy levels were kind of down at that point. It's
a long movie. It's a very self-indulgent movie, I like these kind of movies, so that could be a positive or a negative, whatever kind of movie viewer you are. But yeah, I will admit, I was kind of losing energy towards the third half. I think like I'd just gotten off the plane the day before and had a bit of trouble at the airport and was basically sore from it. So I was just like, oh yeah, I'm pretty tired, but it was still good. I would say that probably my favorite one would be the second story because each story, like two of them, Jesse Plemons is basically the main character and then Emma Stone is the main character in the stories. But the second one is probably like the most balanced one.
Right.
It's probably the weirdest one. It's the most dreamlike one. And it's probably the most fucked up one as well. Yeah, it's so weird. And you can never really tell where anything is going in these movies. Even for like Lanthimos, you can never really predict what is going to happen next because these worlds are so unreal.
Yeah. I think he does like to subvert expectations as well. So there is that is an element of it too. You think the story is going to go one way, but then he just, it goes another way.
I just love how like Lanthimos has such a like good grip on basically writing a comedy or humor, but he as a person seems very humorless. I guess. We saw like a little statement from him at the start of the film. He's like, "Hi, I'm Yorgos Lanthimos. Yeah, thanks for coming to my movie. Sorry, I'm not there, but basically I'm at Cannes, so see you later." That was kind of the message.
He's a pretty funny guy. I saw like some interviews after Poor Things, where it's kind of like him, Mark Ruffalo and Emma Stone talking scenes. And I remember there was one bit in the interview where it like they paused the footage that they had, and Emma Stone's face was just really like weird and fucked up. Like it was a really unflattering like freeze frame, and like Mark Ruffalo and Lanthimos were just like cracking up because they couldn't get over it. I mean, it seems like his sets are pretty fun to work on.
I wonder what working on this movie would be like, or working on a set like this. You'd have to have like some level of, I guess, depravedness. Like, I can't imagine this being a particularly PC set because everything is quite grimly funny. And I wonder how Lanthimos or how the crew work together to have this energy and gets this performance out of people. Because I know in Lanthimos, he didn't write Poor Things or The Favourite. That was written by Tony Ayres, Australian screenwriter. But did he write this one as well? Did he write these three stories?
So he did in collaboration with Eftimus Philippou.
Okay, I don't know who that is.
Yeah. So he's a co-writer of this. Kinds of Kindness. Yeah.
Because you can tell that this is a bit more. Because Poor Things is more hopeful in the end. Well, all these stories end in some of them are quite bittersweet, but also they're just weird. All the endings are weird. Like there's not a sense of triumph in any of the endings, even though the ending is by definition a triumph for some of the characters. So it never. It's just a weird feeling.
It's kind of like a happy ending with an asterisk. Yeah. But no, good film. I think, a lot of fun.
Without going into it too much more, I would definitely recommend this movie. If you're a Lanthimos fan, or if you're a fan of just dark humor, if you have the stomach for it and the attention span for it, go watch it in the cinema. I'll probably give this movie another watch in the cinema when it comes out.
I think it's pretty niche. I'd say if you enjoyed Poor Things, that doesn't necessarily mean you would enjoy this film.
You would like this. Yeah, I feel like some of the people that walked out probably liked Poor Things, and then were like, wow, this is nothing like Poor Things.
Yeah, they're pretty different.
It is a little bit, but they're just different tone, different message, less positive. But that's why I like it. I think Poor Things is a better movie, but I think I like Kinds of Kindness more, just because it's weirder. And it fits into my sardonic tone of enjoying these kind of movies, I guess. Yeah.
It is a lot of fun. All right, let's talk about a film that's less fun. So Box Diaries. So this is a documentary directed by Shiori Ito. And basically, it centers around Shiori, who is a journalist who investigates her own sexual assault and seeks to prosecute the offender Yamaguchi. So the documentary brings to light some outdated judicial and societal systems in Japan. So obviously, it is hard to talk about documentaries about someone's life in a critical sense, especially one that tells a story as personal as this. But I mean, I'll just say that this movie is brave. It's fucking brave. Mate, that she was able to make this at all. It's crazy what she had to go through.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of movie that is like sort of beyond criticism as a story to tell your own and to bring light to these issues. It's no, you're right. It's brave, and brave in the sense that she can get into a lot of trouble rather than just like, I don't know, I might get a couple of like hate comments from someone because I wore dress funny or whatever, you know.
No, this is different.
The proper definition of the word brave.
She is in it. She's so her offender is this dude named Yamaguchi who is some kind of higher up in Japanese broadcasting, but he's mates with the late Shinzo Abe. So there's a lot of kind of like corruption that she kind of uncovers. A lot of things get swept under the rug because of this relationship between Yamaguchi and Abe. Well, allegedly, I guess we can't say for sure, but
I mean, there's still like some ongoing stuff that are involving her and Yamaguchi, isn't there?
Well, she was there. She was at the screening, and she introduced the movie and she gave a little Q&A at the end of it. So she did kind of shed light on like the aftermath of it all. Basically, she tried to. I mean, this is not really a spoilery movie, but if you are going to watch it, maybe skip ahead for this part because she does win her civil case against Yamaguchi. She's awarded the equivalent of 30,000 USD, I think, for winning her civil case. But she also got countersued by Yamaguchi because of her allegations of him using a drug, which at the time was not able to be proven because the testing wasn't in Japan at the time. But because of her documentary, because of her efforts, like they've recently, all the police have been equipped with test kits that is able to test for this date rape drug. So, I mean, it's still kind of ongoing, you know, like even the film distribution of Black Box Diaries is still ongoing. She's trying to find a distributor in Japan.
I mean, one of the first things that I noticed is that during the film, she often gives vlogs throughout the movie, and all of them, when she's speaking to the camera, all of them are in English. And her English it's really good.
Yeah.
Like she has of course she has an accent, but otherwise it's mostly clean.
Yeah, pretty much native level. But she is obviously Japanese is her native tongue, so her choice to do these talking heads in English is very deliberate. I guess she's got that journalistic background, so she knows what she's doing.
I came to the conclusion, with an unfortunate conclusion, that she chose to do it in English because, sure, it'll reach an international audience more so, but also with this kind of issue, it's very, it's hard to get through to officials in Japan,
for sure,
because it doesn't really paint Japan's people in power, in government, and officials as well, in a high light. I would say, because
even not the people in power, but even just the regular citizens. This documentary opens up with her interviewing the taxi driver that was driving her on the night of the incident, and she's asking like him, how many times did I ask you to drop me off at the station? How many times did I? And he said like, 3 or 4 times kind of thing. And like, without outrightly saying it, she is depicting, these people as, turning a blind eye to these kinds of injustices, which they are. Like, she should be exposing them, right? But like, in doing so, you're painting everyday Japanese citizens as contributing to these injustices, basically. So I can totally understand where she's coming from in like going for a foreign audience or an audience outside of Japan anyway. And that kind of explains why she's doing her talking heads in English. makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think this is a kind of film where like it's quite an important movie for people to watch. There are quite a few like trigger warnings at the start of the film, and she mentions it's like, it's not going to be a happy watch. And I guess if you are sensitive to these subjects, you should be wary like going in. But the film is not. It never shows anything exploitative in this movie, and it is presented in a way in which anyone can watch it, at any age, and you can still feel its impact, through Shiori's testimonies and the stuff she says in her vlog and all her struggles in the film. She's denied by police. No one's taking things seriously.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just happens a lot. Because I've been listening to a few like true crime podcasts or YouTube channels. I think there's the popular one would be like Rotten Mango. I think Stephanie, she was like a mukbanger or something, but she does like some true crime stuff, and recently been listening to Dark Asia with Megan. And a lot of the times you hear officials like turning a blind eye or deliberately not doing something about it because it will further their career.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is exclusive to Asia, but you hear so many of these kinds of stories so much in where there is just corruption, and people getting their way out of justice that they deserve because someone knows someone in the judicial system, or someone knows someone in the higher ups.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's a level of justice that is not given. And I get that, sometimes some people will abuse this law as well. Like, you can put the shoe on the other foot and say, and I'm not saying I'm going to anything against Shiori or anyone, but sometimes people can lie about what they've been through.
Yeah. Amber Heard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was going to say that Amber Heard. Yeah. I don't want to bring that up because, it was too mainstream.
Maybe I'll edit this part out, but yeah, I know what you mean. There are two sides to every story, but I think Shiori presents, like in her documentary, Shiori presents a very balanced kind of view. This is just what she went through, and it is told through her lens. Like the format kind of switches between formal investigatory and kind of like more warmer first-hand confessionals. I think that's kind of like a good way to engage the audience, make it not too dry as well, and make it, because like Shiori serving as the director, like the entire story feels very personal, and you become invested in her triumphs and her failures because, it is a bit of a roller coaster what she goes through. She does really well to show the injustice and flaws in the system without expositing too much. Like she shows rather than tells. So she shows what has happened, and it's up to the audience to kind of make up their mind as to what to think about this. And, like there's some people like definitely not on her side in this in Japan. Like she shows that in the documentary, the kind of hate comments that she receives from Japanese women because of like what she's trying to put out there. But it's just a really effective way to tell this kind of story without being overly preachy, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But
at the end of the day, it is an issue. And just seeing this story, and without naming names, just hearing friends that I know personally that have gone through this stuff or are going through these kind of things as well, it's sad to hear that they are not being heard, even though it's quite clear that something has happened to them. But it's just the system sometimes is, I guess, immoral. And I think it's hard because I think the judicial system or the justice system is not essentially a moral system or a right or wrong system. It's what you can prove, I suppose. And it's trying to be moral, but at the end of the day, there's many things that slip through the cracks. And even if there is a victory, it still doesn't feel like a victory.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's also because like due to Japan's like specific circumstances, there's a lot of laws that were outdated at the time of Shiori's case, which, even though she could prove stuff, like it wasn't enough proof, right? Or, it proved something, but it disproved another thing, kind of thing. So, and that's kind of the real injustice in this particular story, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be clear, like, both Tavi and I love Japan.
Yeah,
Even though
we do.
the two movies we're talking about today don't really
Man,
paint Japan in a good light.
But why are we always talking about? When I think about the episodes we've done recently, we've been like shitting on Japan. Like we watched Shogun, where like everyone wants to kill themselves and fucking wants to kill John Blackthorne.
Yeah.
It doesn't really paint Japan.
But this,
we love Japan.
Yeah, but this, like you say, it's not unique to Japan. Like injustice happens in a lot of countries, and then this kind of like sexual assault is unfortunately not taken seriously enough, particularly in Asia. And I think that's why Shiori's story has really resonated with people in Asia. Like there was in the Q&A, there was a lady that stood up and asked a question, and it wasn't even a question. It was just she just wanted to offer support to Shiori, and she said that like she's from China, and this movie is a massive hit in China, and her book as well is a massive hit in China. And even though they can't really talk about the Me Too movement in China, they do have ways to get around it. They apparently they call it rice and rabbit, because rice and rabbit sounds like Me Too or something.
It's
I found
weird.
pretty interesting.
You got to get through all these like political and idealistic like bounds to just get to be heard, which is kind of unfortunate, because you'd want this story to be told in its like unfiltered manner, where things can get lost in translation because you've had to tiptoe around certain things.
But I think that's the beauty of this movie as well, because it doesn't feel very filtered at all.
I think the positive thing about this movie, because at the end of the day, it was a victory for her. Maybe she didn't win that much, say, monetary wise, but she's in the bigger picture scheme of things. This movie is going to, raise some questions. It is going to turn some eyes. I mean, I think she mentioned that this movie did pretty well at Sundance or something like that. So the public's eye are going to be on this system overseas now, and on this system in Japan. And, as we all know, Japan doesn't want to be shamed under the eyes of others, maybe to a point, but like that shit's gonna have to change, and at least this movie can bring a light to it,
lead to positive change, hopefully.
So I think this is you should go watch this movie, even if you are sensitive to these topics. I think just hearing this story will kind of shine a light onto it, and it will make others like turn their heads to, I think, the story where shit needs to change.
For sure. All right. Speaking of changing, let's talk about A Different Man.
So this was a very interesting movie. Yeah, I knew nothing about this movie until your partner told me about this movie.
Yeah,
and she's just said, "Oh yeah, this movie it's got Sebastian Stan in it," and like, "Oh yeah, I've seen him in some stuff. I haven't seen Civil War yet. I mean, Captain America Civil War. But
you've seen Civil War.
No, I have seen Civil War. I'm talking about Winter. I'm talking about Winter Soldier.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the TV show.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like if you want to give a little brief synopsis.
So Sebastian Stan plays a guy named Edward who, at the start of the film, he suffers from facial tumors. But after taking part in an experimental drug trial, Edward is essentially cured of his facial tumors overnight. So he becomes a different man. He becomes Sebastian Stan, a really handsome Sebastian Stan. So after this,
y'all know what Sebastian Stan looks like.
Yeah, you get
it. Looks like that now.
So after this, he kind of gets a new lease on life. He almost becomes a different person, but then he becomes fixated on an actor in a stage production based on his life. So an actor named Oswald, played by Adam Pearson, who in real life suffers from facial tumors.
Yeah. What's the name of the...
Neurofibromatosis.
Neurofibromatosis. So just for clarification's sake, we're just going to call it tumors.
Yeah.
On their
it causes non-cancerous tumors to grow on the nerve tissue of his face.
Yeah, I really like this movie. I found this movie really funny. When I was first watching it, this was kind of towards the tail end of my trip in Sydney, and we were doing like a lot of walking around and a lot of stuff. So I was getting more fatigued by the day. So when I was watching this movie, I think maybe for the first 30 minutes or so, I was liking what I was seeing, but I was kind of just really tired and not enjoying it as much. But I think there's a point, I think it's after he becomes Sebastian Stan.
Yeah.
And then he bumps into Oswald. I think it's where the movie really picks up. And it's really funny. Yeah.
I think Oswald's introduction is a turning point in this film. It's a pretty odd film as well.
Typical A24, which also Kinds of Kindness is also A24
you're right,
as well. We used to fucking love A24, man. It's hard. Yeah.
With that person, you know.
It's A24.
A24 stands unite.
Man, sometimes like I really like a movie and it just happens to be A24, you know. Like for example, in Civil War, I forget that they're A24 movies, but it's like, oh, you're just a fucking A24 fanboy. Like, nah, man, I actually really like this.
That's all right, man. Like what you like. If you like exclusively A24 films, that's all right. But I think you're absolutely right. Like the start of this film, where he is undergoing this procedure. It's a totally different tone to when Oswald comes on the scene. Like it's pretty dark at the start. And that's what I like about this film. You don't really know where it's going as well. Like the tone does shift throughout the movie. It goes from kind of like a dark, almost like a body horror situation to just a black comedy. I mean, the character of Oswald is really fun to watch.
Yeah, he's really fun. He's a really great. He is essentially an antagonist in this movie.
Well, everybody in this film is pretty unlikable, but they're unlikable for different reasons. And Oswald is unlikable because he's just the best at everything. He's the guy that's like, he's just better at you than at everything. But he's so humble and nice that you can't really hate him. He's that guy.
It's true. He's too nice, he's too humble, and he's too good at everything that he is just really annoying.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously supposed to be a representation of who Edward used to look like, but what
he could have been
was just personality. What he could have been, exactly. Because we see Edward at the start of the movie. He's kind of getting weird looks and weird reactions from people. They're kind of talking down to him, and he's very downtrodden, and he lets his facial tumors get the better of him, because he likes a girl, and she likes him back, but he's always very like insecure about how he looks, so that's why he gets the procedure. But Oswald could like care less about his.
And you can tell
tumors.
from the stance as well, like the Edward at the start of the movie. He's got a paunch. He's very hunched over. He's trying to make himself as small as possible, basically. But Oswald is on the opposite end of the spectrum. He's like larger than life. He's always the center of attention in the room. He's Edward, but he hasn't let his his appearance kind of take control of his life, So that kind of is why Edward becomes obsessed with him, because he's like, how can this guy be the way he is?
He is, with the way he looks, and sometimes it's like, if you don't let it bother you, it's the energy that you carry, but it's also just really annoying and frustrating to watch, because Edward, as Sebastian Stan as Edward, is at this point like an unlikable guy. He's just a jealous man. And to kind of minor spoiler, but there's a really funny scene in this movie where he kind of loses it, because there is kind of like a point where because he takes on a new identity, and he's a really good like salesman, like a real estate agent. But there's a point where he kind of loses it, and he kind of has this mask of his old self.
Yeah.
And he puts it on onto one of his like house inspections, and he's trying to be exactly like Oswald.
Yeah,
And even though he didn't need to be, and it's just really funny to watch. I
Yeah.
laughed like
Yeah.
so much. And he's like scaring this little girl.
It's so
was
much
like,
fun
yeah.
seeing, a character as handsome as Sebastian Stan get so jealous by a guy that looks like Adam Pearson,
Yeah.
that he tries to emulate him. It's a really funny take.
Yeah.
And I think both actors, they do a pretty good job. I think, obviously Adam Pearson is a standout, but I think Sebastian Stan does a pretty good job as well.
Yeah, Sebastian Stan does a lot like with his kind of minimal like facial expressions. You can feel you feel so annoyed at Oswald through the lens of Edward through Sebastian Stan, and it's really frustrating to watch. Like, oh, you just want to fucking punch this guy in the face, like shut the fuck up. But Edward at this point, he's not really like a nice guy anymore. Yeah, he's a bit of a jealous dick. At this point
he's kind of like a
because-
Woody Allen character. I'd
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
And this movie does feel like a Woody Allen film or like a Charlie Kaufman film. I think that's pretty
It's
intentional.
got that dreamlike tone, yeah.
Because there is a reference to Woody Allen at the start of the film, so...
Yeah. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Dream Scenario. It's definitely not the same message, but it's got the same kind of mood. And it has a similar ending. It's not a bad ending, but it is just weird. It makes you feel incomplete, I suppose. But not incomplete in the sense that you want to know what's going on, but it's like, is the future going to be any better or worse?
I guess Edward...
For Edward,
and Nicolas Cage's character in Dream Scenario, I forget his name, they do have similar arcs in that they start the film off as a bit of a loser and then they seemingly get everything that they've dreamed of, but it turns out they're still a loser at the end of the day.
Yeah. Dream Scenario is great. I really enjoyed that movie.
Another A24
it's really
film.
Funny. Yeah, it's another A24 film.
Of course you love it, Tommy.
God damn it. Yeah. I just love anything A24. Just like, if Atlas was A24, would have loved it. I was just like, I like it. Yeah. If you just edited it in A24 at the beginning of Atlas, 5 out of 5. I love this movie. Jennifer Lopez is fantastic. Simu Liu, the best villain of all time. Most threatening villain. Better than Darth Vader. Better than Darth Maul. Whatever. Better than Citizen Kane.
We haven't really talked about the female lead in this film, but she does a good job as well.
She also does a good job in the same way Oswald's character does a good job. She's kind of the attractive neighbor who's quite quirky, but is kind of unintentionally like rude. But then she kind of becomes like a bitch by the end of the day.
She's a bad person as well.
She's a bad person,
and like well played by this name, Renate Reinsve. I'm sorry for my pronunciation, but she plays Ingrid. She's from that movie, The Worst Person in the World. So she's got form at playing like shitty characters, I guess.
Yeah. I've been meaning to watch that movie. I've heard really good things about it, but I haven't seen it yet. Yeah.
No, she's good. A lot of nuance to all of these performances.
Yeah, I like her character's motivation because it's like she's seemingly a good person at the start who is interested in Edward and his struggle, but at the end of the day, she basically steals his story and turns it into a playwright.
Yep.
And then it's like, wait a minute, and then she kind of passes it off as like she knows what Edward is thinking all the time. And she just becomes a bad person by the end of the movie.
Or maybe she was always a bad person, but yes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, everyone is a bad person. Yeah, it's not a very it's not a very happy movie.
It's a lot of fun, though. I would say
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
I think it's great that like the movie is giving a chance for like someone like Adam Pearson who would not really get that many roles, and then you have him in this like pretty nuanced, dry, dark comedy. Like this is kind of like a highbrow film, I would say as well.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of themes, lots to talk about, and a lot of the humor is just through the awkwardness of all the interactions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, good stuff. It's got a pretty ambiguous ending, which
Yeah.
I won't talk about because of spoilers, but it leaves a lot open to the interpretation as well, which is always fun.
Yeah. But I don't think there's going to be like a different man 2 or anything like that, you know? So I don't think it's that kind of movie.
Yeah, probably
a different
not.
a different man, The Revenge or something.
A different woman, you know.
A different woman. Oh, yeah. This sounds like such an 80s idea. And then it'll be like, the tone, it'll be like, I think the first one, it was just a little bit too dark. So we'll get like the typical, like, it'll be like Mad Max 3 or Evil Dead 3, where it's like super light. And you have all this like really like whimsical humor. And it's like, you're a real boy now, Edward, or something. It's like, yeah.
All right, let's talk about another whimsical film, The Contestant.
Yes.
So this is another documentary set in Japan. So this is a British documentary, though, directed by Claire Titley or Titley. It tells the story of Tomoaki Hamatsu, better known as Nasubi, as he starred in a 1998 Japanese reality TV show called Susunu Denpa Shonen. So in this show, he's challenged to stay alone, unclothed, in an apartment, and his only means of survival is to enter mail-in sweepstakes competitions through magazines to win prizes. So basically he has to win prizes to survive until he has won 1 million yen worth of prizes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is the equivalent of 8,000 USD.
I actually knew about this story from a few years ago. You hadn't heard anything about the Nasubi story.
I hadn't heard anything about this. Yeah.
So yeah, no, there was a time where it was it was trending. I think Moist Critical Charlie first covered it, or I must have seen someone talk about, you know, this inhumane treatment of a contestant. And when I first watched it, it was just just people talking about Nasubi's story. I'm like, God damn, man, this guy went through some shit, and like, why didn't you like walk out, you know?
Yeah.
And everyone was obviously saying like, the producers are evil. Like, yeah, they have got no fucking morals or anything.
Which is true.
Which is true.
What I love about this documentary, Tavi, is that the producer is in the documentary.
That's what I was going to say. Like
Tsuchiya, he's in it.
Yeah,
he's
like
doing
because
heads.
you've never seen him in any of the YouTube videos, but in this one, that's the selling point for this movie is that you see him. He's in it,
and very willingly in it as well.
But he's just a bad person.
He's not even a person, Tom. He's a demon.
He's a demon. He just shows no remorse at all. And there's a bit where, like, near the end of the documentary, where I think he thinks he's trying to be like a bit of a savior or a saint, but nah, man. Like, you know what you did.
I don't know if he knows what he did. I think he is of a particular generation and a particular mindset where mental abuse isn't a thing or something. Like, that's the only way I can kind of explain the way he acts.
He's basically got the mindset of a Japanese war criminal. That's the best way I can really put it.
Yeah, because you're right. He doesn't show any remorse, but he doesn't really acknowledge like he says the words. He says, "Oh, it must have been hard on Nasubi," and things like that. But there's no he doesn't elaborate on that. There's no feeling behind it. He just says it because it's like he thinks that's what, you know, a human would say. but I don't think he actually feels it. I think, I think he genuinely thinks if he was put in that position, he'd be fine with it. You know, like I think to him, there's nothing wrong with that kind of situation. And I think he's also kind of obsessed with the art of television.
Yeah, because he at the end of the day, he's like, I made some damn good television.
And he's not wrong.
And
you know,
he's not wrong.
You can't say that he is wrong because people ate that shit up. And
yeah, I was gonna say, like, do you think this is? It's pretty much Hunger Games to a point.
It's so dystopian. The shit that there's I really like. This is a terrible tragedy that's happened to Nasubi, but it's framed in a pretty fun way. Like,
yeah.
like they're talking about all this shit that he's been through, and it's kind of intercut with like the original broadcast of Susunu Denpa Shonen, where it's kind of like these disembodied heads of the female hosts.
Oh, the female hosts
on like this green screen background.
Amongst like this fucking green screen PS1
Yeah, it looks like
graphical
Peach's
mess.
Castle or something.
Yeah, it looks so.
And it's like that high energy Japanese hosting style as well.
It's fucking I really the things because I'd seen most of the footage that involved Nasubi, which we should talk about a bit more. But just watching the producer and watching the high energy hosts, I thought was just really funny because like it's just the insanity of
it really reminded me of
shown.
like Battle Royale, which is a parody,
that
I'm
opening.
guessing, of these kinds of things, situations, right? Yeah, where it's just like you're making these people do the most like horrendous acts of atrocity, you know, like putting them through like terrible torture, but it's to the backdrop of Ohayou gozaimasu. So,
well, do you think human beings have really changed that much since the Colosseum days? Do you think, or we just have basic euphemisms of it, you know, like people torturing someone is just like, chuck them in a room and don't feed them shit and let them well, they did feed him crackers like once or
to
twice
get him going, until he started winning prizes.
Because they can't kill him, you know.
Yeah.
Because damn man, that's rough, and he is just constantly naked all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a bit where he was so popular that the producers like, why don't we do a live stream show of it? So they had to, for the live stream, they had to have like this team of guys like draw because they would censor his dick with like an eggplant.
Yeah.
And because it was all done in post, you can do it easily. But for the live stream, they had to have guys in real time, like move
with
this
amazing
joystick
Twitch reflexes, presumably,
to cover his junk with like this this image of an eggplant, and it's just like, man, there's so much went into this,
and that's the thing, because he gets really popular. Like without him knowing, he becomes super popular in Japan through this show. Like popular to the point where somebody finds out where he's being held, so they have to like under cover of night spirit him away to a different location. That's another element to this story, is that this terrible thing that has happened to Nasubi, that is happening to Nasubi, is really, really popular in Japan, and like to a audience abroad to some extent as well, which kind of paints this picture of like, we haven't really come that far from the days of the Colosseum when you kind of see this unfold.
And I think this documentary was also the first time, like compared to the YouTube videos, you actually get to see and hear what Nasubi is going through, and because what is obviously shown on the broadcast is not the times where he's feeling down, you know, especially like Instagram. You're not going to see his low points. Like it sounds like, I'm having a lot of fun being in here. So that's probably what the audience, obviously they don't see, that he's like struggling mentally. You know, there's times where he talked about self-harm and all that.
Because he knows he's on TV. He says that he didn't think that everything would be shown, but he is kind of like hamming it up to the camera as well. So he's trying his best to be entertaining, because he also said like at the start he was worried that they might cut the show if he wasn't entertaining enough. So he does kind of ham it up. But it's kind of hard to tell what is him trying to be entertaining and what is him just descending into madness. Yeah.
Well, he said the door was never locked. So he was never being kept against his will.
That's
like
right.
he could leave at any time because he didn't even sign a contract apparently. So what do you think like kept him there? Like why do you think he was like, I'm gonna stay? Because he stays there for a year, like more than a year.
Yeah.
Like what do you reckon that mindset is? Yeah.
Well, I think he was at the start. He's quite driven by wanting to be famous. Yeah, he's moved from his small hometown to Tokyo with the goal of
from
becoming
Fukushima,
Yeah, from Fukushima. Yeah, that's right. So he's moved to Tokyo with the goal of becoming like a star, really. So I think, that lust for fame plays a part of it. There's also kind of that ingrained, Japanese sentiment of not wanting to disappoint
Not wanting
people.
to let,
Yeah. So that's probably a part of it as well. Yeah.
That's so unfortunate. I think that is also, and just going back to, mentioning Box Diaries again, where there is this kind of institutional, cultural, stigmas that you get that are ingrained within their society that kind of letting these bad things that keep happening, And we know that Japan is a very work-centric culture where it overtakes your family and friends.
Yeah.
And like, as you were saying, Nasubi, he's choosing to stay there because he doesn't want to let anyone down. And that is just part of society. You've seen it in like multiple bits of Japanese media, like not just this one where like
Shogun.
someone's always apologizing to a boss. Yeah, Shogun. We haven't covered this. What was that? Bucket List of the Dead, which is
that's all about that.
It's all about that work-life torture, and it's kind of sad that you kind of put yourself through this struggle just to appease someone, a demon, because obviously when he's saying you can leave at any time, what he's really saying is if you leave, like, you will be a failure.
Yeah.
And he's playing on that Japanese shame.
Yeah.
That is keeping him there. And it sucks, because human rights, man.
Yeah.
You can't just have someone, you can't just guilt someone to lock themselves in a room for 300 or for a year,
Yeah.
And there's kind of a big twist at the end where he has to stay there for a bit longer. And it's like, oh man, imagine that. And I think when I first saw that twist, I was like, damn.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy that it kept going. But no, the true ending of this documentary is a lot more positive.
A lot more positive than I was
It goes in a different direction at a point. It kind of shows Nasubi's life after the Susumu Denpa Shonen Challenge. He takes up a cause. He becomes really invested in the cause. The Fukushima tsunami earthquake situation happens, so he gets really invested in that. Devotes his life to helping people, basically. So I guess the narrative of the documentary is kind of aiming for that, where he's like gone through this hardship, but he's learnt like how to,
to be a good person.
Yeah, how to contribute to society. Which,
he was never a bad person.
He was never a bad person, but he's learned how to contribute to society positively, I guess. Which
I think that's what I liked about this documentary.
I don't know about that though, because I think
it's out of tone, but it's like in a sense of like, from what I've seen everyone else talk about him in the other videos that I've seen, it's all just so negative. It's like,
he's a victim.
Yeah, now he's fucking depressed and he couldn't wear clothes for a year because he felt like bugs were scratching on his skin and stuff. So I think as a narrative, as a documentary, it probably like shifts the direction too much where it kind of loses focus. But for him, it's like, like, I'm glad you're happy.
I'm glad he's doing all right.
I'm glad you're doing all right.
Yeah.
So this is where it's like, maybe it's not the juicy, like, you should have been in more pain because, we're still in the Colosseum days where watching, and that's the whole point of, maybe you're falling into the trap of Denpa Shonen and you want to see him suffer more. But like, but like, if he's genuinely like really happy with his achievement, because he fucking climbs Mount Everest and shit, man. That's fucking... That's no short beat. Yeah, I was watching these other videos about other trained all their life mountaineers climb Mount Everest and die doing it. And this is a guy who was suffering all this like mental health issues. And
he went to Everest and there was a fucking avalanche. But then he went back to Everest and decided to climb it. That's pretty crazy.
So it's a good like test of the human spirit, because you could say arguably that, climbing Mount Everest is harder than what he did on The Contestant. Because
That's what Tsuchiya would say, Tavi, for sure. Tsuchiya would say that, and he does say this in the documentary, that, you know, his challenge prepared Nasumi
that's exactly what I was going to say. The guy's like, I think that's why he agreed to come on the show, because he thinks that statement is like, it's going to absolve me from all this hate. Like, nah, bro, you're a fucking
demon.
You're a demon. This guy, when you watch him, he's like evil. He's an evil man.
Yeah.
With no consideration or remorse. And I want it could be edited this way, but I'm not sure, man.
I don't think so, man.
He kind of says he has this certain energy about him, but it's also like it's pretty entertaining to watch him as well, because he's just so unfilteredly evil that it's kind of like refreshing.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of media, it's like, oh, you got to balance, like your antagonist needs to be like a flawed antagonist. You know, he's got things he wants to do because, you know, he's had a hard past. Well, nah, this guy, as a real person, is just evil, and there's nothing else about him. He's just pure evil. Look at this guy, hate him. That's the role of this guy in this movie. I don't like to say that he is a character in the film, playing a character, but like, I'm pretty sure he's genuinely evil. Yeah,
it plays to the strengths of this documentary. It's very clear cut. You know who the villains are, you know who the heroes are, you know who you're trying to root for. And I think like overall it is a very entertaining documentary. I think, you know, it does kind of tell like a broader message. It doesn't fully commit, I think, to the whole idea of have we evolved that much, you know, situation.
Yeah.
But I think as a platform to tell Nasubi's story, it's pretty good.
Yeah. And it's a pretty easy documentary to watch. Like, it's not the most well-made documentary.
There's a bit of English in it.
Yeah.
I know you had a problem with the narration of Nasubi's diaries
being
read in English.
Yeah, they had to be fair, they got a Japanese actor.
That's Takahiro Hira, Tavi. Shogun's own Ishido himself doing the narration.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go. I didn't know that. Yeah. Like, I mean, he did an alright job, but it was just kind of weird. I don't know.
Because you've got Nasubi there. Why wouldn't you get Nasubi to read the excerpts himself?
Exactly. Yeah.
They dub over bits of the show as well, the Denpa Shonen show. And the narration is in English as well. So there's a lot of English in this, if you're worried about subtitles. Which you shouldn't be, because, you know, it's a Japanese story.
Just read, man. It's not that hard.
But did you enjoy it, Tavi? Did you enjoy this film?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I think if you, for whatever reason, don't want to watch this movie, there's a lot of videos on YouTube.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. I didn't know anything about this story going into the documentary, and I think the documentary itself paints enough of a picture for me to get it and be really interested in it. I'm not like seeking out any additional information, because I think I think I got the broad strokes of it. Yeah,
I think the story is it carries the documentary, so it's a damn good story.
Yeah, and it's available on Hulu, so you can watch it on Disney, presumably.
On Disney,
in Australia. Yeah. You got anything more to say about Contestant?
I think that's all I've got to say. Overall, like all the movies, I enjoyed. I would say I think probably Kinds of Kindness was my favorite out of these four movies. The movie that I would watch again, and I would probably watch A Different Man again as well. The two non-Asian movies.
I think I enjoyed A Different Man
the fiction ones,
the most out of these films. But definitely glad I saw all of them, especially Black Box Diaries. I think that's a really affecting movie. And like all of the movies that we saw, super strong. Yeah, good choices.
I think there were a couple others that we wanted to watch. We wanted to watch Kill, but I think that's airing this weekend. Today actually.
Yeah, I wanted to watch that.
But yeah, I'm back in Melbourne.
Wanted to watch the bikers as well.
The bike riders.
The bike riders, that's it. And what's it called? Megalopolis? I'm really interested to watch Megalopolis because I heard it's a shit show.
I want to watch Megalopolis, I want to see a big like another wank fest. So let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I enjoyed all the films, and I'll probably catch those movies during MIF when that comes around this year. But yeah, I guess that's our.
Hey guys. But yeah, what did you think of these films? Have you been at the Sydney Film Festival? If so, what movies have you watched and what would you recommend? Let us know. You can get in touch with us at twoasianblokes@gmail.com. You can join our Facebook group to be part of the conversation, or you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at twoasianblokes to see what we're up to. Thank you for listening, as always.
Yep. We'll see you later. It's fucking cold in Melbourne now. I'm gonna go get some soup or some shit, man. Fucking dying.
Good idea.
All right.
All right, guys. Later.
All right. We'll see you later, guys. Bye.